So the variability in trials was definitely one of the key takeaways for me and really sort of spiked my interest, and not in the variability that I would usually think of.
Started off with some work from cognitive theorists, cognitive scientists, who for years have been studying this phenomenon that if you learn something, if you're trying to learn something new, if you learn it in a variable way, you will have greater chance retaining that information at a later point in time. Or if you have to learn a motor task, you're better off learning the motor task from different locations or different angles than the same location and angle over and over and over again. And there are various theories for why that is. One of the most important ones, I think, is that when it's variable, you have to really work at it. It's not easy. It's actually hard. And according to the cognitive theorists, that makes the memory that you're learning more storable and retrievable. It's also possible that when you vary it up, so you're learning different ways of doing the same thing, or you're learning different ways of memorizing material, you're capturing a rule that says there's an invariance here, that there's some principle that applies across all of these different items that's the same. Traditionally, exposure-based therapies have been based on blocked and constant, not variable and random practice.
So we can all look at, like, when we're doing desensitizations, we know that we need to have variability so the dog generalizes quicker. What Michelle talks about with variability is actually almost more so the intensity of the stimulus itself. So she does use and I'll make like a little snippety thing here so you can have a look at it here, but essentially what she does is she varies the level of intensity of the fear eliciting stimulus.
We repeated this in acrophobia, fear of heights, where one group did blocked exposure, where we had them go to an outside stairwell that was unprotected, and they would start off at the first level, do the exposure there 4 times, then they'd go up to the second level of the stairwell and do the exposure there 4 times, all the way up to the final level. And they always did the exposure in the exact same way, whereas the random group, they might go straight to the 8th level, then down to the 2nd level, then maybe over to the 6th level. So it was variable in the order, and it was also variable in how they approached the railing. They might walk up and lean over, or put an arm down, or stretch backwards over the rail. They would vary it up. And again, it was the varied group, the blue bars, that showed less return of fear than the constant group.
So it wasn't that common gradual increase of the intensity that I've certainly done in the past. It was much more varied. And honestly, when I first started listening to this, I thought it seemed a bit counterintuitive, because you would think that, that getting over level 1 today will make getting over level 2 tomorrow easier. But what she did find within her research is that variability actually created better results. The downside is I do see some flaws of this in applying it in our industry. Let's just talk about dog aggression. It would be hard to increase intensity of dogs safely. Obviously, let's say if you had, quite a large kennel of different dogs of varying degrees of just general intensity. So let's just say, for example, you had a Labrador, and that was sort of your go-to, the first dog that they would come in contact with, and then you could move up to your level 2 or level 3, being a German Shepherd that's pretty calm, cool and collected. And then as you move up, you get up to, the crazy dogs like your Malinois and your really highly driven Kelpies and those sort of crazy high drive dogs that have that general state of craziness, and that's just who they are. I can definitely see it applying there. But look, with careful exercise design, I really do think if you come back to the principles of exposure therapy, which is a controlled environment, I should say a controlled and safe environment, as long as you're really designing the I suppose, the whole outcome for the dog, then I really can't see any problems in this. Although I do think you obviously don't want to just be chucking a dog into level 10 straight off the bat. I still do think there does need to be some form of staged progression, and that could be going from, let's say, for example, 1 to 5, then 2 to 6, then 3 to 7, and so on and so forth. So there is still that variability in intensity, but without, ideally, like, I don't want to be coming into every session with the dog where, you know, we would be looking at the behaviour that we're trying to eliminate from the dog's repertoire. Like, one, if you're a balance trainer, you don't want to be coming in just constantly correcting it all the time, because that's just not, it's not fun for a trainer, and it's certainly not fun for the dog. But two, if you're looking at it more from your positive only or positive first protocols, like, you don't want to just be standing there ignoring the dog, letting the dog exhibit and practice that behavior either. So again, I think it really comes back to, as long as you're really careful in the way that you structure your sessions, then I definitely think the variable in intensity is a really, really cool thing where you could add into it, rather than just your common thoughts on variability being like, okay, we'll just use, you know, this person here today and then this person here tomorrow, etc., etc. The other cool thing about bringing in variability of intensity of the stimulus itself into your training sessions is that makes it a lot more real world. So for example, like, most of our clients would probably walk their dogs just in the suburbs, right, or in the city, and once they've been practicing these exposure therapy sessions with you, then they're a little bit more prepared to tackle the big wide world. We never know what's going to be coming around the next corner, whether it's going to be a completely chilled out King Charles Cavalier or a psychotic, I don't know, I don't want to be breed snob here, but just a psycho dog, let's just go with that. So this is an interesting one. So if anybody out there has any ideas of how they would implement this idea of varying the intensity of the fear eliciting stimulus, get in touch, let's have a chat about it. Chuck something in the comments below, or you can message us on our socials. Social handles is @the Dog Trainers Library.